letting some people join. This is kind of last minute, so I'm not expecting a whole lot of people. But I still just want to talk, and this live will be available after, and I will be posting it on the Goddess Garden Birth YouTube channel, so people can watch it over there as well. Ooh. Hello everybody, hello. You like my shirt? Support Black doulas, courtesy of National Black Doulas Association, which is the association that I trained and got my birth certification with. So shout out to them. All Black Birth Association. They do amazing work, amazing work, and it's owned by the incomparable Tracy Hollins. So shout out to her. But tonight we are talking about our dream births. We, especially as women, we envision everything, right? We have the vision. We see it all. We envision what our dream house looks like. We envision what our dream relationship looks like. We envision our dream cars and our dream everything. We can envision everything. But one thing that we don't envision typically or dream is what our ideal birth looks like. And that is crucial right now. Crucial. So I wanted to bring this discussion to you guys so that we can talk about imagining your dream birth, what that could look like, how you can go about achieving your dream birth, and just all the complexities that is birth related. In the United States, which is where I am, the standard of birth is, in my opinion, subpar. We typically have the notion that, okay, as soon as I find out I'm pregnant, I have to go to the doctor, I have to get all these tests done, I have to be going to the doctor every month or every few weeks and getting the ultrasounds and getting the blood work and getting this and getting that, getting probed, getting vaginal exams, all of that. And then when it comes to the actual labor and delivery aspect of it, you think, because a lot of us watch a lot of TV, right? So we think that as soon as the water breaks, if your water breaks at the beginning of your labor, as soon as the water breaks, gotta rush to the hospital, get in there, and then we just sit. We sit and we wait and we sit and we wait, and when we get in the hospital, we're laying in the bed, we're strapped up with all the things, with the fetal heart monitor, we got the IVs going, we got nurses in and out, we got a lot going on within the birthing space. And that can be very detrimental to the birthing person, to the birthing environment, and ultimately to the baby. Now, not saying that if you have a hospital birth, that is just the most horrible thing in the world. Not saying that, because it is not on you as the birthing person to create an environment in which that is safe. Now, can you take Can you take steps to ensure that your birthing space is sacred and peaceful and just good for you? Absolutely, and we're going to talk about that. But within the medical system, a hospital birth is can be very toxic for many reasons. Particularly for Black women, it is not known to be the safest environment. And we have seen, especially within these last few weeks, the number of Black women that have been dying in childbirth for unnecessary reasons. And that is a result of how the medical system has it set up when it comes to childbirth. So, the standard of care in the hospital, you get in there, you lay on the bed, you get strapped up to everything, and then you just sit there and you wait, and eventually your labor will progress and you'll have a baby, right? That's what we think when we go into the hospital. But when you go in typically as soon as your labor starts practically, and then you're forced to sit there and wait around. And then once you've been waiting for a while, they say, oh, well, you know, your labor isn't progressing the way that we would like it to. It's not moving as fast as we want it to. So, you know, to make sure that the baby isn't in danger, we have to give you some Pitocin so that we can speed things up a little bit. And they give you the Pitocin. The Pitocin has its own reactions within the body. And in some cases, it may speed up labor. But what it actually does to the body and to the system is it makes the uterus contract stronger and harder. And that is supposed to simulate a contraction, right? But that's not what a natural contraction feels like, nor is it what a natural contraction really does. So it ends up causing more harm than good. And then you end up having these women and these birthing people who come out having a lot of horror stories when it comes to their birth. And they're just like, oh, you know, this happened and then I had to go through this and they had to do that to me. And then when they speak to other women, they project those horror stories onto other women who are pregnant or about to give birth, and or birthing people who are about to give birth. And then it creates this cycle, perpetuates this cycle of not only a traumatic experience just factually baseline within the system and within the hospital, but it perpetuates a mindset of the birthing people going into their birth, right? So you have somebody going into birth already having these trauma stories in their minds, and they're already, if it's their first birth, or if it's their third, fourth, whatever, they may be a little nervous, they may be a little scared, they may be a little uneasy. And so that does not help them birth in a way that's going to be best for them and best for their baby. So what are our options? What are the options? We have not been given the opportunity to truly explore the many alternatives or many options when it comes to giving birth. A hospital birth is not the only option, and having a birth that is not in a hospital is not necessarily unsafe, even though that is what a lot of us are told. That's not necessarily the case. You can have a perfectly safe, perfectly healthy birth outside of the hospital if that's what you choose. And that's completely okay. There are people who are trained and certified and who have studied and really taken the knowledge when it comes to birth to be able to help facilitate a birth outside of the hospital. And they do it all the time. That is what they do. They don't do anything else. And they're prepared to help you in pretty much any situation. Why is it important to reimagine birth? It's important to reimagine birth because, like I said, particularly with Black women and women of color, or women within the indigenous diaspora, as well as the LGBT community, we have had too many instances where birth turns into something horrific, right? And it's not always because of the person themselves. It's not always because of someone's health issues. A lot of the times it's due to unnecessary interventions. A lot of the times it's also due to these people not being believed when it comes to expressing what they're feeling and what they're experiencing within their bodies. So that ends up creating a snowball, and then unfortunately you end up having people who are passing away, either them or their baby or both. So the importance of reimagining birth is simply that. We can't afford to lose any more people due to something that is supposed to be one of the most amazing experiences of a person's life. It is one of the most sacred experiences of a person's life. And it's vital that we protect that, and that we do everything that we can to ensure that people who do birth are taken care of and given compassion and love. They're listened to, they're understood, and they're fully supported throughout this journey, because birth is something beautiful, yes, but it's also pretty intense. It has some pretty intense components to it. So you want to make sure that someone who is giving birth is protected mentally, physically, emotionally, and that they are fully supported across the board. So what does reimagining birth look like? Reimagining birth can mean a number of things. It can be reimagining the way that you go into the hospital if you choose to have a hospital birth. It can mean reimagining just your birth in general, choosing where you want to birth and how you want to birth. And yes, there is more than one way to give birth, several ways to give birth. It can be reimagining the way you mentally approach birth. It can mean a number of things, but all of those components are important and needed, and we have to start thinking about that. I know right now everybody's in quarantine, and it's a lot of quarantine babies being had. Okay, a lot of people getting pregnant right now. I think this is gonna be like probably bigger than the baby boomer era, I think, just because everybody's at home and been at home for months, and we know what happens. But that is a beautiful thing, and even though it is so beautiful, there is some things that we have to really be serious about and really have to think about, which is what we're talking about today. What are the alternatives, or what are the options when it comes to giving birth? Well, you can go into the hospital. You can just have a typical hospital birth, the standard. And you could go into the hospital and have a birthing team by your side, which is me. I am a member of the birthing team. I'm a labor postpartum doula, and I specialize in holistic birth. So you could hire a doula to go into the hospital with you, and we support you throughout that journey there. You can decide to have a birthing center birth, which is kind of like the next step down from having a hospital birth. Which is like the next step down from having a hospital birth. You can have a home birth, which a lot of people are choosing to do these days, and that is probably one of my favorite types of birth, and I'll explain why later. So those are the different types of birth that we have, and regardless of what you choose, that is completely, up to you, and it's respected. But my job and our job as birth workers is to make sure that you know all of your options, because while we as birth workers we shouldn't try to deter you from having one type of birth over the other, within the medical system, they will try to deter you from having particular types of birth, especially home births, and even sometimes some birthing center births. They just want you to be in a hospital, but that is a conversation for another day. So whatever you choose, we as birth workers completely honor and respect that, and we are not here to place judgment on you. We are here to support you and make sure that you have not just the mental, physical, and emotional support that you need, but also the backup that you need, the voice that you may need when you're in the midst of labor and you're focused, you're in the zone, and you have people asking you questions and trying to do different things, and of course you're having a baby, so you can't really pay attention and make decisions and as clearly as you would be able to if you were just not in the midst of pushing a baby out of your body. So we're there to help kind of guide and navigate and make sure that nothing is being pushed on you. You are fully aware of everything that's being done to you. We are to make sure that if you're in a hospital, that everything that's being done is done with full consent by you, because you do have the right to consent to any and everything that is done to you within the hospital. Nothing is mandatory in the hospital. You have a right to consent or to deny any and everything. So that is what birth workers do. We assist you in that area when it comes to a hospital birth. If you're in here and you have given birth before, would you briefly tell me in the comments what your birth was like? Give me a quick synopsis. If you've had a baby before, what your birth was like. You can rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not the best experience and 10 being the best experience, or you can just say a few words. I want to get some feedback. And in the pinned comments, you will see the comment to donate to the Gift of Goddess Foundation. The Gift of Goddess Fund. Woo! Speaking something into existence. The Gift of Goddess Fund, which is the fund that my company is creating that will allow me to give my services to a goddess in need, whether she just doesn't have the money to hire a birthing team, or she just is falling on hard times, whatever the case may be. That goddess fund, that Gift of Goddess Fund, is there so that when I come across someone like that, I can offer my services free of charge, and they can get the support that they need during their pregnancy, labor, and delivery, as well as postpartum. Okay, hi loves. If you're just coming in, I'm talking about dream birth, imagining your dream birth. What does that look like? Is it possible to have a dream birth? And how can we go about achieving that? So earlier I was talking about the standard of care that is within the medical system and what birth looks like within the medical system. It's very hurry up and get to the hospital. Then once you're at the hospital, just sit and wait. And then there's a lot of interventions and things that take place, and then all these interventions lead to a lot of negative birth experiences and negative birth stories. So when other birthing people interact with each other, they're just swapping traumatic stories, and that puts the birthing person in a negative headspace, and it makes them approach their birth in a way that isn't necessarily the best or the healthiest. So I want to know, if you've given birth already, what your birthing experience was like. Reimagining birth isn't something that is typical, I would say. It's a new concept, it's a new idea, if you will, unfortunately. So in order to reimagine birth, we have to understand birth as it is now, and how we can build from what we have now to move forward into a space that is a lot better and a lot healthier for ourselves and for our minds and for our babies. Okay, you said yours was a 1. But in order to build and reimagine birth, we have to understand where we are now. And where we are now, particularly for Black women, women of color, women of the indigenous diaspora, it is not a good place right now. So we have to really, really buckle down and figure out ways to better ourselves, and that starts with our mental and our ideology behind birth. Okay, my mom is in here. Hi, Mom. She said her birth was a 9. Labor wasn't too bad, and delivery pushed twice, and I was out. I was an easy birth. That's great. I was a preemie. I was exactly 1 month early. I put that in quotes because I personally don't believe in due dates. I believe I'd rather call them guest dates or something like that. I believe that a baby comes when a baby is ready. So if that's a month early, like I was ready. I was like, look, I can't wait anymore. I'm clearly missing something on the outside, so I got to go. So it just depends on when the child is ready. I hear more often than not, people describe their births more towards the latter end of the scale, like that 1 to 5, and that's really disheartening. It's really, really disheartening because, like I said, birth is such a sacred experience that it should be one of the most beautiful experiences that you'll ever have. And it's unfortunate that so many birthing people are going through this journey alone, going through this journey scared, going through this journey and being mistreated. That's completely unacceptable to me, which is a large reason why I became a doula, because I personally, let me let you hear it from my mouth. I, Shaila Sàmone, as a birth worker, I'm here to shake up the table. Okay? I am here to shake the table when it comes to birth, because the way we are operating now, it's not gonna fly for me anymore. And I refuse to stand by and perpetuate something like this. So my intentions when it comes to birth is to make sure that we know our birthrights. At the bare minimum, we must know our birthrights. As I said earlier, when you are giving birth in the hospital, I need you to know, I need you to hear me. Nothing is mandatory. Nothing is mandatory when you are giving birth in a hospital, or when you're in the hospital, period, whether you're giving birth or not. Nothing is mandatory. Everything must require consent. Everything. Consent. Everything. If you do not want to have vaginal exams every hour on the hour, you cannot consent to that. You can say no. If you don't want people coming in and out, or if you just want them to knock when they come in, and if you say don't come in, then they can't come in. That is absolutely your right. It's your right to privacy. If they're telling you, well, we need to give you Pitocin because we don't feel like your labor is progressing fast enough, and you know that you haven't even been in labor that long, you can say no to any medical interventions. Even if it's a C-section, you can absolutely say no to that. That is your right. So it's important that we understand just those basic things. And coercion is a very real thing. So it's imperative, I feel, that every person has a birthing team behind them, or doula behind them when it comes to them giving birth. Because when you're in that state, when you're in that zone of birth, you don't need to focus on anything but delivering your child. And unfortunately, that's taken advantage of. That sensitive state that you're in, it gets taken advantage of. And so they'll try to push different things on you, so you think you're being taken care of, but you're really not. You're just honestly being inconvenienced and having a beautiful moment taken away from you. Hold on, let me read this. I had a C-section with my son. I guess he was stressed and pooped and swallowed it. He had a hole in his heart. And my C-section with my daughter was 1, 2. Why? Because they shot me in the back 6 times. What? So what she just said is that with her son, she had to have a C-section because he was in distress and he had swallowed some meconium. Meconium is the baby's poop that they sometimes can get into their airways, to their throat when they're in the womb. So he had swallowed some meconium, and he also had a hole in his heart. So in that situation, absolutely, C-section is 100% needed, 1000%. Then she said her C-section with her daughter was a 1-2 because they attempted to put the epidural in her back 6 times. Now, my question is, did they tell you that you had to have a C-section with your daughter? Or was it, well, for my mental, I'm curious what that dynamic was. But regardless, the fact that they attempted a epidural 6 times. Now, if you're watching this and you don't know what an epidural is numbing medication, for the most part, that goes into the spine, which essentially numbs you from about the waist down. And it helps a lot of women to be able to birth essentially pain-free. But there is other things that come into play with an epidural. So she said that when they attempted to give her the epidural, it took them 6 times. It took them sticking her 6 times for them to get it right. That is 1000% malpractice. 1000% malpractice. I don't care what the situation. After, I believe some hospitals have a certain number of times that they can try before they have to step away because it is a malpractice situation. So I think typically it's like maybe 2 times, 2 or 3, which is still too many for me. Typically they can only do it a couple times, and then the person who is attempting, if they cannot get it right, they have to step away from you and go get somebody else, because there's, let me breathe, because that just threw me all the way off. They have to go get somebody else, because now you have introduced an extremely high risk of infection, because you are continuously poking a hole through the skin, but not only the skin, because to get an epidural, it has to go through the skin, through the tissue, through the muscle, in the spine. So to do that 6 times and you're not getting it right, so that means you're not even you're hitting everywhere but. So now you've punctured holes in 6 other places besides where it's supposed to go into this person. I can't even fathom that. That's insane to me. And whoever did that, I hope that you complained at the very least, filed a complaint at the very least. But in all actuality, you are completely entitled to file a lawsuit against that hospital or that person, because that is insane. That is insane. I've heard of people getting stuck 3 times. I think that might have been the most I've ever heard. But 6 times? 6? And then you ended up having a C-section? Oh, goodness. This is why I became a doula, because of situations like this. Not this is not to shame or anything like that, but if she had a doula present, that would have went a completely different way. Hell, excuse my language, but hell, even if she had just someone who was remotely competent to say, okay, we've tried this 6 times, it's not working, we have to step away. Like, we've tried this twice and it's not working, so we have to step away and go get somebody else. If she had someone to advocate for her, her birth experience would have been completely different. Completely different. And it breaks my heart that you had to I'm so sorry that you had to experience that. I truly, truly am. I'm so sorry. And I'm sure that you are dealing with the, you're probably still dealing with the effects of that, of all the attempts. You probably may have some back issues, or even nerve issues. So I'm heartbroken by that. I'm really honestly trying not to cry, because that breaks my heart. That breaks my heart. If you're pregnant right now, you can tell me what kind of birth you're looking forward to having. Are you leaning towards hospital? Are you leaning towards birthing center? Or are you leaning towards a home birth? Because I really want us to, my overall theme for this live right now is reimagining birth, dreaming of our dream birth. And you'll find that people have had more traumatic births than they've had enjoyable births. And that is another pandemic that is plaguing this country. United States has the highest infant and maternal mortality rate in the world. That says a lot. And then add on top of that, the Black maternal death rate in the United States is unnervingly high. And then the C-section rate is one of the tops in the world as well, which I'm not too surprised that a lot of people don't know that OBGYNs are surgeons. They are trained surgeons. So when you give a surgeon patient, they're going to see surgery. That's what they're trained to do. So you end up having birthing people getting wheeled into C-sections that they really truly don't need. And a C-section can be extremely, extremely traumatic in itself. That is major, major surgery. A lot of people don't know what what happens in a C-section. In a C-section, you are given they call it a smiley face incision. It goes from the one end of the uterus to the other, or the placenta to the other, and then once they have created that incision, they create more incisions to get through all the layers, because you got to go through the muscles and the tissue. So once they've gotten through all of that and they can see the placenta, often they have to move organs out of the way, or even take organs out in order to get to the baby. So they remove the organs, put them on right there on the table next to you, and then they puncture the placenta, and then they pull baby out. Now, there is a technique that is supposed to be done and is being done more commonly when it comes to C-sections, which is, I can't remember the term, but basically they puncture the placenta and then they essentially let baby deliver itself. So the baby will notice that there's an opening. So they come and it's their head. So they pop their little head out and they're just like, oh, okay, this is different. So they're looking around and they're exploring, and just like when you give birth vaginally, there is a rotation that the baby does naturally. So when you give birth vaginally, which I'm getting a pelvic model soon so that I can really fully demonstrate this, but this is my little baby for now. Essentially, when you are giving birth vaginally, the baby is head down, and the pelvis, the pelvis, they come through the pelvic bone, and then the baby, in order to get out, because you got to get the shoulders and stuff out, so in order to get the rest of the body out, the baby does a turn to help push itself out. So the baby will keep turning and turning and turning until bloop, baby's out. So with the C-section, they try to mimic that same thing. So they will let the baby kind of turn and shift for a little bit and help guide the baby out, because incision is a tighter space than the vaginal canal. So the baby isn't really able to do what it does naturally, but they try to at least let the baby simulate that as much as possible. So that is what happens when you have a C-section. Both my births were decent, but I would never have gotten an epidural if I had a little more knowledge back then. Yes, I hear that a lot. I hear a lot of birthing people say that if they really knew what a epidural entailed, they would not have gotten it. A lot of people hear epidural and they just say, oh, you know, it's the numbing medication that makes you go numb from the waist down. Which, yes, that's what it does, but the components of an epidural isn't just numbing medication. It's numbing medication, typically lidocaine or my mind is going blank. Typically some form of numbing medication. It is also opioids that's in the epidural. It is a lot of other chemical compounds that is in the epidural as well. So we have to think about that. Remember, when you're pregnant, whatever is put into your body is going into the baby. So when you receive an epidural, it goes to you and to the baby, and it goes to you into the baby. So your baby, your little tiny little baby is getting an adult dose of whatever is put into your body, whether that be Pitocin, whether that be the epidural, whether that be any type of painkiller or anything. Everything that is put into your body is going into your baby. And we give in the hospital, they give medication based upon your size, your weight, all of that. So you are a full-grown adult, and you are getting an adult dose of whatever medication they're giving you. And your little tiny newborn baby, not even newborn yet because it's not even out, your baby is receiving that adult dose of that medication. And what you'll see a lot when it comes to, thank you, Rose, for that. What you'll see a lot when it comes to people who have any type of intervention done within their birth, whether it be Pitocin, whether it be epidurals, whatever, what you'll see is the baby comes out really lethargic, just, you know, not quite there. Everybody looks for the cry, you know, the cry to let us know that baby's okay, baby's breathing. That's the thing that we look for. And a lot of the times when the baby comes out and the baby isn't crying or isn't fully alert, the doctor assumes that, you know, something's wrong. But really, the baby's drugged. The baby's lethargic because it's received so much medication in its system, and it doesn't know how to process that, so it's sleepy, you know. Let me see. But yes, this is why it's important for us to really do our own research and consult with different people when it comes to our birth. This is something that you as a birthing person were made to do. Your body was made to do this naturally. Before the invention of any of these interventions or medications, this is what your body was created to do. And I feel like the medical system has kind of made women believe that we don't know how to birth. We don't know, like our bodies are somehow incapable of being able to birth the children that we created. I've heard a lot of people will say that the doctors told them that they were too small to deliver their baby vaginally. Now, let me say, I'm, of course, am not a clinical medical professional. But as a doula, I do have to have a high level of medical knowledge and understanding. And I do have medical knowledge and understanding from other areas of my life. So, to me, my personal opinion, it's not that, it doesn't quite make sense to me to say that a woman is incapable of birthing the child that she created and gestated for 9 months, and all of a sudden now she's incapable of being able to birth her child. It almost dehumanizes the birthing person. Like, okay, I grew this baby for 9 months in my belly, I took care of them, and all of a sudden now I don't have what it takes to deliver my child. Like, how does that play on one's psyche? How does that make you feel as a parent to have that taken away from you? When you birth, particularly the delivery, you get a flood of hormones that you will never ever get in any other way other than giving birth. That is the one time you will ever receive, we call it that cocktail. It's a cocktail of hormones. You will never receive that cocktail of hormones in any other way other than giving birth. And that is what creates that euphoric moment of, oh my God, my baby, and you're just crying, and it's that joyousness, and you kind of forget that you just went through, all that pain giving birth, and it's just that joyous moment that you have, and that comes from that rush of hormones that you get from giving birth. You and the baby receive that rush of hormones. So to have that kind of stripped from you, it damages us mentally and emotionally, and we have to address those things. We have to really unpack all of that before we can think about how we move forward when it comes to giving birth. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But that's something that we're not told. We're not given all the information when it comes to birth. And there's been instances where certain drugs have been used for birth that the FDA has not approved for birth, and that the manufacturer specifically states should not be used for birth. If you really want to dive into the birthing system, I recommend checking out a documentary called Pregnant in America. You can find it on YouTube and on Prime Video. It's free if you have Prime, on Prime Video, and then if you get it on YouTube, it's like $2.99 to rent or something like that. It's worth whatever. If you have to pay, it's worth it, completely worth it, for the information that you get and the behind the curtain look that you get to see about the birthing system. And it's actually one of the documentaries that that pushed me into birth work, because there's no way you can see that and not be completely moved to do something. Another documentary is Ricky Lake's The Business of Being Born. The Business of Being, I think right now on Vimeo, it's free to watch. So you can just type in the business of being born in Google, and when you see the Vimeo link pop up, you can click on that, and they have it free to watch right now, because they said that with the number of women losing their lives in childbirth right now, they feel that it's imperative that this information be given freely. And I'm a huge advocate for free information, but also still respecting the person who's taking the time to cultivate that information, and having respect for the hard work that they've done. If you have any questions, or you just want some insight or answers into something that may have happened to you, I'm offering a service that will be available on Saturday when I officially launch my business. It's going to be called Ask the Doula, and you can have a 30 minutes or 1 hour session with me, and we can talk about anything you want. If you have questions about your previous births, if you want to talk about your upcoming birth, if you want to just talk about birth in general and you want to get some answers revolving birth in general, if you are thinking about getting into birth work, we can discuss that as well. It's available to talk about anything, really. I have Ask the Doula, and then I have a service that's going to be called Virtual Home Visits. And because we are in the midst of COVID, my postpartum clients, I can't, do what I usually do for my postpartum clients, which as a doula, we care for our postpartum clients by way of coming to the house, taking the baby if they just want to go to sleep, or if they want to go get some work done, or if they want to just do something outside of taking care of the baby. They just need a break and they want to feel like, an individual person for a minute. We help them with that. If they need laundry done, if they need food cooked, we'll cook for our clients. We'll cook them some really good things that are good for healing the body, for getting their mental in a right state. We will sit down and have conversations, do mental check-ins to make sure that they're, on the right track and they're not slipping into the dangerous slope of postpartum depression. We work on lactation. So through the virtual home visit service, I will have that available virtually. So we can still talk about, your mental state. We can still, just converse, and you can have a conversation with a person outside of your child, an adult outside of your child, or your partner. You just want to have girl chat and just talk to somebody. We can still do a number of things virtually. So that service will be available for that. And also, if you want to breastfeed, or if you are breastfeeding and you may be struggling, breastfeeding is a very tricky thing. So if you're struggling with that, through the virtual home visits, I can assist you in that as well. I am trained in lactation, so I can help you with breastfeeding, the proper ways to breastfeed. A lot of people don't know that there is a proper way to breastfeed, and if you are having cracked nipples or like really painful breastfeeding sessions, you're likely not breastfeeding properly, or your baby isn't latched properly. So I would be able to help you with that as well. What else? Yeah, so really the key to reimagining birth is to arm ourselves with information. And if you like this page right here, A Goddess Garden Birth LLC, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, A Goddess Garden Birth LLC, and my Instagram, A Goddess Garden Birth, you will be able to get a lot of great information about birth in general, and about just care for birthing people, because it's a crazy time right now. It's crazy. At the beginning of this COVID situation, mothers were being separated from their babies as soon as they gave birth. Like, the baby would be taken away and kept away for days and hours. And just recently, like I want to say maybe a couple days ago, I believe it's the World Health Organization, if I'm not mistaken, it may be a separate division, but one of these governing bodies just decided or made it okay for mothers, for the baby to stay with the mother after they give birth in the hospital. But if the baby stays with them, they have to only, basically they can only feed the baby for the closeness, and then they have to keep their distance from the baby. So it's still crazy. And if you are going to have a hospital birth and you want to inquire about my services, you can inbox me on this page right here. Just send me an inbox, or you can also select a consultation. I have the link for the free consultation as soon as you click on the page. For my prospective clients, I offer a free 30-minute consultation. So you can talk to me, I can talk to you, we can figure out if we're a great match for each other. That's something else. You don't just have to go with anybody. Whether it's a doctor or a birth worker, you don't have to just go with anybody. I make it a point to have my clients get in the habit of interviewing me. I want you to interview me to make sure that I'm the right fit for you, to make sure that I'm able to meet your needs and to assist you in the way that you want help, because it is your experience, it is your body, and I'm just here to be a support. So you can book a consultation with me and we can discuss your options and, take it from there. I think that's pretty much it for right now. I'll be doing more videos, more talking, so get used to it. But I really truly am passionate about what I do. I love what I do, and I'm just so excited to continue serving my community and all of the communities. If you do not know, I cater to the Black community, the entire African and Indigenous diaspora, wherever you fall on that diaspora. I cater to the LGBT community, and I cater to those who identify as spiritual versus religious. So whatever walk of life you're from, we can make sure that your birth reflects who you are and the life that you live, because that's extremely, extremely important. So I am so glad that I got to talk to you guys for a little bit. We had a few difficulties in the beginning, but it's okay. I thank you guys so much for tuning in. I love you dearly, and I will see you guys soon. Okay, you'll be getting more information about the website and all the launch, all that great stuff coming soon. Okay, any questions, don't forget to inbox me. I love you, and I hope you guys have a good evening. Mwah.